On the evening of the 27th of September 1994, the Estonia, a 500-foot-long passenger ferry, set sail from the Estonian capital of Tallinn. She was bound for Stockholm, but would never arrive. 6 hours into her voyage, the largest car ferry of the Estonian fleet sank to the bottom of the Baltic Sea, claiming the lives of 852 passengers and crew. It was the worst maritime disaster in Europe since World War II. The horrors of this tragedy have never gone away. The ship has never been raised, and in the months and years that followed, a rash of conspiracy theories spread about the cause of the sinking. A bomb, sabotage by gangsters, or even the KGB or CIA. This film recreates the final hour of the Estonia's last voyage. By interviewing the surviving crew and passengers, and analysing the findings of the Investigating Commission's report, it will reveal the truth of what happened to the Estonia. Shortly before 1 a.m. in the early morning of September the 28th, 1994, the Estonia is pitching against the heavy sea. She's been sailing for nearly 6 hours and is approaching the halfway point of her regular voyage to Stockholm. She's now in the middle of the Baltic Sea. For Captain Andresson, this is just another routine crossing. But within just 1 hour, the Estonia will sink. The weather is worsening.
On sul mulle mingeid häid uudiseid? Mitte eriti. Ilmateade kahjuks ilmamuutust ei ennusta. Pigem läheb veel hullemaks. Meil on praegu juba tuulekiirus 25 sõlme. Mobilisaatorid aitavad laeva tasakaalus hoida, ehkki edasiliikumine on seetõttu veelgi vaevalisem. Aga praegu hilineme ligi tund aega.
Captain Andresson is Soviet trained, with 20 years experience at sea. He's been the Estonia's captain since day one. The enormous car ferry is jointly owned with the Swedes and is a proud symbol of Estonia's new independence. But it's important that Captain Andresson keeps on time. Estonia must show that she can keep up with her Scandinavian neighbors.
Hoia 14-sõlmelist kiirust, muidu jääme siia kogu ööks. All pole miskit muret. Seal näevad veel kõik piisavalt rõõmsad. Laseme endil veel rohkem täis juua.
Tonight the Estonia is half full, with nearly 1,000 people on board. Earlier in the evening, a dance troupe provided the entertainment. In the bar, a conference group celebrating the union of the Baltic countries are returning to Sweden. Among them is Kent Harstead, but the uncomfortable motion of the ship is hampering his fun.
Ska du ha något?
Nej, tack.
Inte ens en glas vin?
Nej, jag mår inte tillräckligt bra och jag har inte ens tagit en drink idag.
Because by now we really could feel that it was a great storm outside, but none of us was really worried. Actually, there came a big wave that made all the things to fall down on the floor and be crushed.
Ja, snart så bjuder de på fri champagne också.
Väldigt vanligt att köra så här.
We started to joke a little bit. We started to reflect on and joke about Titanic. We said, this is almost like Titanic, and soon they will give us free champagne and they will start play music here on the dance floor, you know. And we laughed a little bit. It was kind of a way to get rid of some of our underlying nervousness, because now it was really big waves.
But it's not the sea that need alarming, it's the ship. The Estonia is on an unstoppable course. Destination, disaster. Most passengers are feeling ill and forced to brave the storm alone in their cabins. Hella Motus, a young Estonian, has worked in the duty-free shop on board for over a year and a half. But earlier in the day, she's learned that she's pregnant and will soon have to quit her job. Hella has always had a fear of storms.
Üks asi oli rasedus ja teine asi.
I was feeling bad. One was my pregnancy, another was the storm. I just went quickly to bed.
Michael Oon, a Swedish truck driver and engineer, has felt seasick all evening.
I was lying on my back and I felt that this is much better. And then I put my alarm clock on the table and I set it for time in the morning so I could go to the breakfast. And then finally I was falling asleep.
As the ship rolls heavily, Michael remembers noticing that his truck hadn't been tied down in the car deck. It plays on his mind as he tries to sleep. For Annelie Conrad, a young Estonian dancer, it's her first time on the ship, and she also grows uneasy.
It was more like something inside me was feeling strange. But at this moment, you don't think that a disaster is about to happen.
Until now, Annelie has had little time even to notice the storm. As a member of the new dance troupe, this evening has been her first performance aboard the prestigious ship.
We were all nervous, feeling stage fright. Our legs were shaking, but we were giving our best. When we finished our third bit, more than one girl had already fallen into the drum kit. The ship was rocking quite heavily.
Kent watches the floor show from the bar.
Det går som kägg nu. Jag har inte sett det förut.
Nobody notices the storm outside, and backstage, Annelie laughs about their performance.
See ei ole üldse see, mis ma ette kujutasin. Mul tulid kogu aeg kingad jalast ära. Mul ka, ma mõtlesin, ma käin pikalisel. Kuule, kas see on alati nii? Murrame ükskord jalad ära niimoodi, see küll tore ei ole.
But now she becomes worried.
Ma tean seda, et
I remember that I left backstage alone. I remember going downstairs, and I went down too far, and I stopped to hear the sound of car alarms. Just on the other side of the wall, all these alarms. I was really panicking. Something was really wrong. I just felt this fear and started running.
Nüüd on midagi pahasti.
And then upstairs, I calmed down. Thought of myself as a nutcase.
But there's been nothing irrational about her fear. Because just 2 decks beneath her lies the most vulnerable part of the ship, the car deck. If just 10 centimeters of water is to cover this open space, it's enough to capsize the whole ferry, faster even than a hole in the bottom of the hull. The car deck is protected by a lifting bow, called a visor. Inside this is a strong watertight inner door. This is where the seaman of the watch is carrying out his tour of inspection. But amidst the noise of the storm, he hears a loud metallic bang coming from the bow door area.
Jaa.
Olen autotekile, siin alles käis õudne prahmakas.
Sa näed midagi? Kas kõik lukud on omal kohal?
Ei, ma ei näe midagi erilist.
Mine ja kontrolli kohe üle.
The bang is the first sign of something going wrong. Within 24 hours, a commission made up of officials from Sweden, Finland and Estonia will be set up to investigate the events and circumstances surrounding the Estonia disaster. The commissioners will work their way right back to 1980, when the Estonia was built for the Finnish Viking Line by the renowned German shipbuilders Meyer Werft. The Finnish authorities had granted it an A1 certificate, fit to sail anywhere in the world. Its attractive flared bow gave it an elegant line, but this will help to create an ugly disaster. The Baltic Sea is notorious for creating short but sharp waves. Only months earlier, such waves had broken off the visor from the Estonia's sister ship. But the shipping industry didn't consider to check the Estonia's identical design. This accident is about to happen again to the Estonia.
Hoia silmad kõrvad lahti, kui peaks veel mingeid kaebusi tekkima. Ja kui ta seal all midagi leiab, anna kohe teada.
As Captain Anderson's duty ends, he hands over to his second officer.
Hyvä.
But no one realizes that the locking pins in the giant outer bow visor have been damaged by the heavy sea and are now breaking off.
The ship hit the wave so hard, so it almost stopped. There was tree banks, like heavy things falling. It was something like a trailer on the car deck fell down.
In fact, it is the port, starboard and bottom locks breaking away from the 54-ton bow visor. Now the giant metal shield is held on by just its hinges and the hydraulic arms each side. The hinges break first, and next the two arms tear away from the bulkhead, sending a shockwave reverberating along the ship. Passengers on the lower decks hear the visor bouncing off the hull. Many believe the ship has suffered a bomb blast or hit a mine.
Bridge.
Mine kontrolli, mis toimub autotekil. Jaa, kapteni silt kuuleb.
As the commission will later reveal, no one on the bridge realizes that the front bulkhead of the ship should never have been passed by the shipping authorities. There should have been a greater distance between the visor and the crucial inner door. The falling visor pulls open this watertight barrier, and water enters the car deck. Now the design flaws of the ship conspire against Captain Anderson's crew. The warning sensors do not relay to the bridge that anything is wrong. And because the Estonia has extended superstructure, it's impossible for the officers on the bridge to see that the visor is even missing. The closed-circuit television showing the car deck is located behind the officers in the chart room. The crewmen below in the engine room are the only ones to see the water. Thinking it's just rainwater, they switch on the pumps to clear it. They don't bother to contact the bridge. But when the chief engineer sees the pumps are overwhelmed, he heads to the car deck to investigate. He knows this is serious. Because when this volume of water surges to one side, the weight of it will pull the whole ship over. Now it's too late. The buildup of water falls to the starboard side. The ship violently lists.
It feels like that very moment was a long moment. However, it must have been just part of a second or so. I was actually hanging on the rail, and I could look down on all the people who actually fell all the way. I remember I lost my ability to hear. Very strange. I could hear my pulse. I could hear my heartbeat. It went very quiet, and people just tried to take in what is happening.
Hoia kinni!
Kas me oleme millegagi kokku põlganud?
Mine ja kontrolli uksed üle!
Need on rohelised, need on kinni!
Mis kurat see nüüd oli?
Mis teha?
Kontrollige pallast!
Pumpa pallast vesi teisele poole. Kogu vesi.
Hannes, a junior working down below in the engine room, hears the instruction.
But we had already filled the portside tank, so there was nothing more we could do.
As Captain Anderson tries to struggle back to the bridge, most passengers are awoken in their cabins. The Lindstroms are returning home to Sweden from a holiday. Like nearly everyone aboard, their chances of survival from now on depend upon where they're located in the ship and the speed with which they react. 19-year-old Magnus Lindstrom is sharing a cabin with his girlfriend Katrina next door to his parents. He reacts immediately.
Vi måste ut härifrån. Hämta min mamma och pappa. Mamma, pappa, kom igen. Vi måste ut härifrån. På med kläderna.
Nearly everyone is disorientated.
We had to pull ourselves to the door. For me, it was like a silent movie. I saw everything, but I couldn't hear a thing.
Michael Un's cabin, also on deck 4, slants downwards.
I said to myself, now I must go out and find out what happened. And then I found my camera, put it in one pocket.
The seaman of the watch, who'd been sent to re-inspect the car deck, is unable to get any lower than the 4th deck.
All on suur kaos. Inimesed alumistelt tekivad, jooksevad üles. Nad ütlevad, et vesi läheb sisse.
Hella has had basic training for an emergency.
Such a shock.
Ja noh, kuna ütleme sellest õppehäiretest ja kõigest oli
I remembered from the training to put more clothes on.
et tuleb ennast võimalikult palju riidesse panna, siis
I took all I saw and put it on. Then I started to climb out of the cabin. Water was behind the window already.
Vesi oli juba akna taga. Vajuti ukse.
Climbing by doorposts towards the exits. Any misstep meant falling into the next cabin.
Captain Anderson and his crew are now faced with having to make instant, desperately difficult decisions. By bringing the downward side of the ship around, he hopes that the force of the wind and waves against it will help push the Estonia back up onto an even keel. It's a tragic miscalculation. Because the furious sea now floods the lower decks at the rate of 20 tons a second, forcing the ship to list more heavily. Magnus leads his parents and girlfriend to the stairs. For the 1,000 people aboard, the central stairwells are the only escape.
You have to watch out for people coming, sliding from the upper corridor. So I run very fast over that hole.
At the other side, he meets Michael Un.
Vad är det som händer? Vad ska vi göra?
De har tappat kontrollen. Det tar upp till oss. Vi måste klättra högre. Det är sjö. Det är livbåtarna.
Magnus and Michael Un struggle their way upwards towards the open deck.
So I go up to deck 5 and then I recognize that my parents and girlfriend was not with me. So I go down to deck 4 again and then stands on the other side on the hole.
Like many, Magnus's family become paralyzed by the situation around them.
My father, he don't say anything, and my mother was, she just stand there, and my girlfriend was in shock. So my mother told me, run you, save you.
Nej, nej, rädda dig! Spring upp, Magnus! Nej!
Then I don't think, I just turn around and start to climbing up from the stairs again.
This is the last Magnus will ever see of his family. Anneli soon discovers the perils of the hallway.
I really must have been hypnotized. And then I saw this woman lying there. Probably unconscious, but I saw blood on her face, and my first thought was that she was dead. I had only one thought in my head. What are you doing standing here? Get out! Get out! You were holding on, and saw others who couldn't hold on anymore. Then you just see these people who just sat in a corner, given up fighting. They were really shocking.
The window of survival is closing fast. Women and children, the old and the injured, no longer have the strength to escape. They can only wait as tragedy threatens to strike.
As long as you were inside, it felt very much like a trap. But you couldn't act in panic, then you were running up and falling down again. Some people were crying in apathy and other people was just doing everything to go out.
The last hurdle for Michael Oon is to reach the outer door leading to the deck.
I saw there was a locked door, and I grabbed it and pulled myself out.
For some, the outside deck poses an extra and shocking danger. Rolf Sorman scrambles out into the hands of muggers and looters.
People that came out were very aggressive, and I saw they were taking people's necklaces and gold chains and things like that. And they even did on me. One of these three guys came and took my gold chain. I was frightened. I felt that it's possible to get killed here.
The ship's engines now stall completely. The Estonia drifts at the mercy of the Baltic Sea. It's just past 1:20 a.m. and now everyone has just 30 minutes before the Estonia sinks beneath the waves. As the tilt of the ship increases, so the chances of escape diminish.
At one moment the main engines stopped. As a sailor I know that without the main engines the ship is unmanageable.
The bridge has no option but to announce the emergency code word.
Mr. Skylight, number 1 ja 2.
Mr. Skylight, number 1 ja 2.
As a member of the crew, Hella understands the coded announcement. It's ordering the crew to their fire stations.
Ja minu kohustus oli minna siis.
My duty was to go to the right outer deck.
Välistekile. Aga see koht, kus...
But that part of the ship where I was supposed to save passengers was already underwater.
Vee all, kui ma sinna jõudsin.
Because of the panic created by the extreme list, no organized evacuation is announced. During the Commission's investigation, the lack of a planned evacuation was highlighted as a failure of the crew. Over the next 30 minutes, many hundreds of people will die trapped inside the ship. In desperation, the bridge sends out the first distress call.
Mayday! Mayday! Estonia! Palun! Mayday!
14 ships received the message. The closest is the Mariella, just 9 miles away.
Estonia, Mariella! Estonia, Mariella!
But their reply isn't heard.
Palun!
In a state of panic, the second officer ignores procedure. He radios blind another ferry, the Silja Europa, which he thinks may be in the area.
Silja Europa!
This creates confusion across the emergency channel.
Estonia!
Estonia, Silja Europa. Vastame kui kanalil.
Silja Europa!
Estonia, Silja Europa.
Silja Europa! Viking, Estonia.
But as the situation becomes more desperate, the messages become more muddled.
Estonia.
The Commission noted that the radio traffic was not conducted in accordance with the correct procedures. Now the Mariella joins in the confusion of messages.
Estonia, Mariella, lõpp. Mayday, Mayday, Silja Europa, Estonia. Estonia, Estonia.
As a junior officer forced to take command, the third officer gives no indication of the seriousness of their predicament. The near blackout and severe list prevent him from giving the coordinates of their position.
Meil on probleem, tugev talle, paremale. Arvan, et see võiks olla 20-30 kraadi. Kas te saate appi tulla? Kutsuge Viking Line ka.
Jah, Viking Line on meie taga ja nad kuulsid kindlasti infot. Kas oskate ütelda, kus asute?
Meil on infosult, ma ei saa kätte. Ma ei saa seda öelda.
By now the list is so steep that the Estonia is turned onto its side. Many plunge to their death by falling through the windows to the other side of the ship. The interior becomes an open void from which there is no escape.
There was an open window and I felt that air was pressed out of the ship. Then it must be something else coming in, and that's water. And then it's a question of time, how long will we stay here? There were a lot of life jackets lying. So I grabbed one and put it on. But I did not know how to strap it.
Having escaped the looters, Rolf Sorman now finds he can't get a life jacket.
We found the lockers for the life jackets and tried to open one of these doors. And the first door, it was impossible, so they had painted the lockers. So it was like glue around the whole door.
For many, the pressure to find a life jacket becomes so desperate that some even take them from fellow passengers.
I also tried to open one of these white round things that include a raft. I didn't know by then that they were actually automatic. Soon the boat started to change again. I really had to move up along the side of the boat, actually climb on the outside of the boat. And I realized I couldn't make this by myself. And that was when I met a girl there. I introduced myself to this girl. Her name is Sarah. So I said, my name is Kent. Would you like to cooperate with me so we can help each other through these challenges that are ahead? And we made a kind of pact there.
Down in the engine room, there's nothing more that Hannes and his fellow engineer can do.
I'd been told that if the car deck is filled with water, the ship would go down like a rock. It's one of the most dangerous things about those roll-on, roll-off ferries. Then I thought, oops, how did I happen to be at that moment in the lowest part of the ship?
So Hannes and his fellow engineer escape up the emergency exit. On the outside, many passengers lose their grip and fall into the sea. Anneli will be one of the very few women to survive. 97% of women passengers will not make it.
I remember this box of life jackets. I actually put on 2 jackets, because I had never tried to put one on before. I was getting tired, couldn't hang on anymore. The next time the ship tilted, I felt like a ripe plum. A pipe or something hit me in the face. It hit my jaw. I really didn't think I had any teeth left. It happened so fast, bang! And then I was in the water. All these things and life rafts were falling from the ship. Your strength was not enough against nature. It was too much. Strength did not help you. It was more like luck, fate. I believe in that.
Estonia! Estonia!
The Mariella tries to raise the Finnish Coast Guard in Turku, but interference prevents the message from reaching the mainland.
Siin Mariella, Torkola, vastake palun, lõpp. Siin Mariella, Estonia Mayday, korda, Estonia Mayday, palun vastake.
The third officer sends the very last message to the Silja Europa.
Kui kaugel te olete? Nüüd tuntuu tosi huonolta.
Jah, me oleme juba teel. Jõuame umbes 48 minuti pärast.
Water breaches the bridge, the highest point on the ship. The decision to jump, when and where, is the difficulty facing Kent Harstead and his companion Sarah.
Vilket jävla vapen. Kan man byta och tänka på det. Jag vill inte slå mig på vägen ner. Det är så. Jag står bland den bästa platsen.
I guess it must mean a jump about 15-20 meters, so it was quite a challenge to anyone. But then actually the captain, he blew the horn 3 times.
We just hear the horn and the siren, and then the bridge crashed in the water.
Tänker vi från kaptenen. Det är den sista signalen för oss. Jag kan inte ihop den här båten ner oss i sjön. Det är signalen för oss att göra.
Okej, okej.
I felt very sentimental. A moment you just read about in books, captains deciding to follow the boat into the depth.
Captain Anderson will go down with his ship.
All windows just crashed and blew up out. So it was a big scene. And then there was a big wave come and take us in the water.
Vi lever i den här natten. Judarna vet. Våldar stoppar nästa vecka.
Det låter bra. Vi gör det.
It was half by decision and half by the boat started to turn again. We went into the water. We got something around our waists. I got some very heavy things that dragged me down. And after some moments of struggle, I just gave up. I felt that I won't make it. Instead, I started to take in water, and I must have fainted. And then next moment, I woke up at the surface.
Sara, är det?
Ja, det är jag. Vem är det?
Det är Glenn. Kan du rädda Glenn, säg?
Rolf Sorman and his workmate Ivan seize their chance.
I felt that I was sucked down in the water. Even when I had this life jacket on, it was not enough buoyancy to bring me to the surface. So I had to swim away from Estonia, 100 meters or something, to get rid of this suction feeling. Because all the compartments inside the ship that was air-filled was now going to be water-filled. And it was like bubbling water, boiling water.
But Michael Oon isn't letting go. He's managed to escape the sea by climbing right around onto the upturned hull.
It was very surrealistic. The cabins now were down in the sea. The ship had tilted even more.
Michael Oon scrambles up the hull to the stabilizer wing, now the highest point of the ship.
I thought that if the help is on their way, there could be a helicopter above us. So then I remembered I had put my camera in my pocket. And I just hold it in front of me, and I was giving a flash up to the sky, maybe to help to see it. And then I saw 2 other ferries, so I hold my camera, and then I pressed it again.
Michael decides he can stay no longer.
Now I was very lucky that I didn't hit anything that was floating in the water. I had no life jacket when I swam. I lost it when I fall into the water.
Without a life jacket, Michael makes it to the safety of a nearby raft. Rolf Sorman, who is a trained diver, has a more grueling experience. He swims off with Yvonne, but soon encounters a group of passengers suffering from shock and hypothermia.
There was some people that were more or less like zombies. They scared me a lot, because I thought perhaps they want to use me as a floating device. I tried to talk to them and to fix their eyes and things like that, and it was no reaction. Just like this. And they were alive. But they were quite shocked or something. So we decided to swim around these 4 or 5 persons and meet on the other side.
But when Rolf swims around to the other side of them, Yvonne is gone.
It was quite rough. A lot of work to get there. So on top on a wave, and I was shouting to her that we had to swim to each other, and we tried to. But after a couple of waves there, she was gone, and everyone else was gone. So I was alone, and then my heart was like that.
Kent and Sarah find an upturned raft. They can't right it. They're exposed to the wind and water.
Every time a big wave came, we really had to try to do our best to stay on board.
But even this is a safer bet than the alternatives. Rolf Sorman finds only a broken lifeboat to save him.
It was upside down and broken in the front. And it was very low in the water. It was 2 young people, 2 boys and a girl that I could help up.
The boat then drifts back towards the sinking Estonia. Rolf believes that this is the end.
We passed the Estonia when she's totally upside down, and we could see the bulb. And I felt we were sucked into Estonia, and I thought, oh, shit, no, now I'm going to be sucked into the ship.
Fewer than 300 manage to escape the sinking Estonia. Most remain trapped inside, or unable to let go of the upturned hull. The Silja Europa manages to contact Radio Helsinki, 20 minutes after the Mayday call.
And I saw the ship sinking. In the bow section, it was standing right up from the sea. It was almost like a church tower. Just when the boat was sinking, it was like calm in the sea, and the moon came and lighted up.
Given that we were in this very terrible situation, freezing and fighting to stay on to the raft, still when we looked on the boat, it looked very beautiful, with all the lights on board, and for us, and at least for me, it was very hard to take in this totally horrifying situation overall. So it symbolized something positive instead of something terrible. And I guess the explanation for that is that it wasn't possible to take in what was actually happening.
Nej, se on Estonia. Det är inte valguskusten.
At 1:48, the Estonia disappears from the radar screen at the Finnish military base on the nearby island of Uto. For those fortunate enough to escape, the cruelest battle to survive now begins. Only 137 from nearly 1,000 passengers and crew on board will survive. Even those lucky enough to find life rafts are likely to die from hypothermia.
I remember one very fit guy. The cold just went in through his skin immediately into the bones. So from being approximately 20 in the beginning of this experience, in the morning we were 7 alive.
Michael Un's raft is the right way up, but inside it there are still fatalities.
There was one man mumbling, talking. So I decided that I will hold his head above the surface, so at least he shall not drown in the life raft. So I held him for quite a long time. Then I felt that he was almost getting stiff. Then I decided myself that he is dead.
Having already lost his workmate Ivan at sea, Rolf Sorman holds onto the hands of a young girl across the hull of the upturned boat. For hours, he tries his best to keep her conscious and prevent her from slipping off, until a big wave crashed over her.
She was taken away out into the sea. I couldn't hold her because I couldn't control my fingers.
The first rescue helicopters arrive at 3 a.m. But there are equipment failures, and many survivors die waiting for helicopters to return to base for repairs.
Now in the early morning hours, I really felt that death was eating itself closer to us.
The passenger ferry, the Mariella, which had once had its own visor broken open at sea, is the first ship to arrive at the scene. The crew rescue the first 6 survivors at 3:08 a.m.
The person coming down from the helicopter, he tried to take the guy who was in the worst shape first, but he just panicked and he started to fight with the rescuer. So actually, when he was on his way up to the helicopter, he just started to panic and he actually fell down in the water again and just sank.
By 9 o'clock, the last survivors are rescued. Kent Harstead is one of them. In total, just 94 bodies are recovered. The majority of the 852 victims remain trapped inside the Estonia. The Swedish government decided it was both too expensive and too insensitive to lift the wreck. In the coming months and years, that decision, and the wish to point the finger at anywhere but human error, gave rise to a rash of conspiracy theories, among them sabotage by the CIA or the KGB, or even by gangsters. But the Commission's exhaustive investigation and all credible eyewitness accounts disprove these. It's now clear that the sinking of the Estonia was the result of a chain of unfortunate events and mistakes that conspired with mechanical defects to ensure disaster. The 50-ton bow visor was reclaimed 1 mile from where the Estonia sank. Its poor welding and inadequate safety locks allowed it to be broken off by the heavy sea. The Commission's 3-year investigation revealed that all 3 countries had something to be ashamed of. The Finnish authorities had originally given the Estonia its A1 certificate, fit to sail anywhere in the world. Yet the bow had failed to satisfy the regulations. The Swedish and Estonians were responsible for maintenance and crewing. Yet survivors complained of doors being overpainted, life jackets which had perished, and faulty life rafts. The Estonian crew were criticized for their poor reaction time and evacuation. Now, Baltic countries take part in NATO exercises, where they rehearse for any such accident again. But on the night of the Estonia disaster, one of the ferries that had helped in the rescue, the Silja Europa, also built by Meyer Werft, damaged one of its bow doors and had to be repaired. Now some ferry companies have welded shut their visors, added additional watertight doors, and installed partitions that split up the car deck. But for the Estonia, it was too late.
This is the most tricky question for me. What have I changed after the accident? And I think I take things more in shorter terms. I live more for the day. I'm not so stressed at work. If there's a thing that must be done, it's not that important that will affect my family life. If you can't do it today, then you can do it tomorrow.
And I think that night, I got, because of that night, a 10 years extra experience and still was in the same age. So I had to say, and I had said it before, that I could have been without 900 people's death. But for me as an individual, as a person, I do not. I should not have been without the Estonia accident. I've learned a lot. It sounds a bit strange, perhaps, what I'm saying now, but that's the way I think of it sometimes.
I can tell my mother and father how terrible it all was, but they just don't understand. And I have come to the conclusion that they are lucky in that way, because they just don't get it, how terrible it was. It is the hardest for those whose loved ones did not come back from there. I don't know how many were traumatized because of that. I wouldn't want to be crippled because of that. It is pure luck that I sit here. I talk, I laugh, I cry.
Today, Anneli Conrad lives with her husband and child in Estonia. Michael Oon has a family and works as an engineer in Sweden. Magnus Lindström now has 3 sons. He's moved away from his hometown, where this disaster claimed 56 lives. Kent Harstad kept his promise and took Sarah out to dinner in Stockholm. Today he's a Swedish MP who supports further investigation into the tragedy. Rolf Sorman and his family live in Stockholm. Having studied the photos of every survivor, he's never come across the faces of the men who robbed him. Hella Motus' pregnancy passed without further incident. 7 months after the disaster, she celebrated with her husband the birth of a son, Robin.